All right, welcome to, I believe, the fourth recording of this beginning to this episode. It is getting to be a bit bananas, but that's okay. I want to get it just right for everybody out there. So this is Stormz. This is the tech corner I have for Dungeon Crawler Network. You can find us at dungeoncrawlernetwork.com. This week, we are going to look at 2D games, or at least a very beginning look at 2D games. We have in front of you a level from what's called the Corgi Engine. And I'm going to bring down the Corgi Engine documentation so you can see what we're talking about. If I could spell right. So Corgi Engine documentation. And here we have the Corgi Engine. Now, well, you ask, what is a Corgi Engine? Well, the Corgi Engine is an asset. It's an asset that sits on top of the Unity engine. The Unity engine was originally envisioned to do 3D gaming. They've added some new tools, but that still doesn't take away from the tremendous ability of the Corgi engine to take a jump forward. This is, to me, like, building a car from scratch. I'm not going to build a car from scratch. I would just buy it on the lot. But if I was going to build a car, I would buy the body somewhere. I would buy the engine somewhere. I would buy the seats and put them all together. Basically, that's what I'm doing here at Digital Studios. We are taking the Unity engine, integrating, which is mostly done for us already, the Corgi engine, and then doing some more integration ourselves that we want changes, as well as adding other assets. It happened to be that my son and I just said, hey, let's build a 2D game. And around the same time, Unity came out with a challenge, Unity 2D Challenge, which we'll hashtag. And then we came up with the idea, or my son came up with the story, Human After All. We're doing Eyes Open, which is Chapter 1, as a 2D action platformer. You can see the very beginnings of Level 2, that what it looked like. We're modifying it. We're changing the main character. We're making it look more gritty than this. We're adding some different backgrounds. But again, there's only a couple of us. So what we've done is we've taken the engine, both Corgi and Unity, put them together and added some artifacts to it from 11 other assets. We've taken pieces that we want. We've moved pieces that we want. And we're going to build this level by level, this story that talks about, well, I'll give the story away. You'll have to follow along in the game. All right, so Corgi Engine, right, one of the main assets. We then have Human After All, which is the game we're working on. Now, if you look at what we have here, we have the beginning of Level 2 for the Corgi Engine demo retro adventure. We are taking this as the basic starting point, and then we're going to drastically modify it. You will not even be able to tell what level it was when we're done. The idea is, I don't like starting things from scratch. Corgi has done a tremendous engine, or More Mountains has done a tremendous engine here, and we're going to utilize that on top of the tremendous Unity engine to come up with a platformer. So this is what it looks like when it's sitting in front of you, not running. Now, running, currently, there's no background, because I'm sort of in the middle of changing the background, which we'll talk about. So I've changed the character from the original robot to this swordsman, Arun. We're going to modify this swordsman some more, but right now, this is what we have, right? There she goes, or he goes, depending on which one I say. And you go in, and you can hit a... Boom. All right, so you hit a factor, and you die. So now let's turn this off. All right, so we saw how that worked. Now, you notice there's no characters on this screen. That's part of what the Corgi engine does for you. So what it does is it allows you to pick the pieces that you want and change them as you go. So again, we're starting with a particular level. So there's a level manager, right? For every level, there's a level manager. And that is what tells the Corgi engine what your character is, where the checkpoints are, if you have more than one character, more than one player, if they are antagonists, if they're protagonists, whatever you want to do, right? All this sort of stuff. It also gives you level bounds, which we'll talk about way later. So, character. We have a rune swordsmith. What we're going to do to demonstrate how easy it is to put a new character in, we're going to leave this screen, bring up the project. Now you notice we have the screen in the bottom that has the hierarchy of all the objects in the scene, right? Whether they're visible or not, they're in this list down here. We then have a project. A project, of those of you who are new to Unity or haven't seen Unity before, is a list of all the assets in a project, whether they be artifacts, images, scripts, whatever they are. We have, this is where our rune is, and he was the character that we put. Now we're going to change that. Let's pop back on the level manager. We want to drag the imp over there. So now the imp is our player character. So let's press play again. And you'll notice up comes the imp. So there's the imp, right? There's the imp. A little slightly different action. Pretty cool. And this is the imp. He can run. He can jump. He doesn't have a backward run yet. I'll work on him on that one. Sure it is. I just haven't set it up right. We have teleportation, usual platformer stuff. All this is built into Corgi Engine. And then that Corgi Engine uses the factors that are built into the Unity engine. Now they have this type of thing for Unreal Engine, right? They have things you can build on top of. You don't have to start from scratch with any of these engines. The Unity, being a lot older or have been around for a longer period of time, has more items in its marketplace that are more mature. So it's a more of a mature market. One of the reasons I picked Unity to work for Digital Pepper Studios is we don't have a large art department or a large development department. So I have to be able to pick and choose whether or not I'm going to write something from scratch or whether I'm going to buy it and then use it and integrate it into the project as I want to. So currently I chose to buy most of it, and I'm going to work with probably another artist to come up with different, slightly different characters than the swordsmith and the imp, but that's okay. That's what we do. We're right now working through how the levels work and what we're going to do. So we saw that AI change, right? So well, not AI, but player. We changed the player from a rune to the imp, which is great. Now, let me show you what I mean by different things. We're going to take this imp, and he came over here on another project. Imp, all right? Oh, big surprise there. And you see him here. What we've done is I have a folder called prefabs, and we're going to delete this prefab. Surprise. Okay, so we deleted the prefab. It's gone. What a prefab is an object. It inherits the portions, inherits the attributes of what it's inherited from. We're going to take imp, which is over here in the demo, and we're going to take this imp and we're going to Control D, which duplicates an object. Okay, so that duplicates. It doesn't inherit from. So everything is exactly the same. It copies it and renames it, as you notice. What I'm going to do is take this guy and drag him over to the prefabs folder. Okay, now what does that do? Nothing yet. So look on prefabs. You'll see imp. Same guy. He's just in a prefab, right? So if I were to take said imp and drag him into a scene, let's see, move project down to here. If I was to take imp and drag him up, you'd notice in the hierarchy, we now have an imp. Okay, so any changes I make to now, if I go to this project and make changes to this imp, they'll be reflected on the imp up there in the project. But I don't want him there, so let's get rid of him anyway. All right, so let's put project up where it belongs. Okay, so now we have that project. We have a prefab. I want to take this prefab and I want to get him to work with Corgi. Right now, he's got a demo script attached to him. If you click on there, you'll see there's a demo script, or in this case, the imp script. All right, so the imp script will tell him how to move, things like that. That came with the asset when I bought it, but it's not going to work with the Corgi engine as of yet. It'll sit there and do what demo or what imp script tells it to do, but that's it. So if you look at start, And oh, it just paused. Okay, there's multiple auto listeners. We're going to get rid of that. Okay, so the imp needs to be listed. So if you go back to the hierarchy, level manager, over here, you'll see nothing is set. So it gave me an error that, hey, there's nothing for me to put in this game. What can I do? So let's put Arun back in for a second. Well, let's do this. Let's put Arun in there. Where are we here? Nope. We're going to click back on level manager. Make sure we drag Arun over to character. Now, if we start it, up there they are. All right, same thing. If we take the imp and we were to drag imp 1 down there, it's not going to fit. Why is that going? It's telling us no. All right, so it's telling us no because it's not yet a Corgi character. If you notice, the box type is wrong one. The box type over here is element 0 is player prefab or a playable character type character. Imp is not a character yet. Arun is a character, but not imp. If you look at Arun, you'll see there's a bucket load of scripts that were added to the character by Corgi. I'll show you how that works. If you look at imp 1, there's really just the imp script, right? And I want to take the imp script or the imp, and I want to go to component, and I want to go to Corgi Engine, and I want to go to character, and I want to go to core and go to character. All right, now if you take this and look at that, there's a script that tells us we're going to make him or her a character. It's an imp. We do not want them to be AI. We want them to be player. So you get to drive the player. We're going to skip the player ID for now. Okay, so let's go down. Let's do the same player ID as player 1. So we'll copy that. Okay, now we did that. Which ways you face was the direction on spawn, the animator. Well, it's the imp animator. An animator is a total other subject we'll talk about, how you animate within Unity or Unreal if I decide to do that one. In this case, you then come down to the bottom of the script. Okay, now what? Well, you can auto build the player character or auto build an AI. Eventually, I'm going to make this imp an AI character. For now, make him a player. So I click the button and look at all these scripts that were added. We have the Corgi controller, right? Tells different parameters, speed, gravity, blah, 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 blah. All that sort of stuff. Now, if we go back to the level manager, you'll see that our own swordsmith is there. We can take imp and drop it in there now because it's a Corgi character. Now, if we're going to press play, and your imp, oh, look, the imp is really small. Why is that imp small? So you notice he's a little teeny right there. So what we have is another point of integration between a particular asset that was purchased and the asset another was purchased. So we're going to have to integrate or make work together the Corgi engine and the imp. Now, same thing happens if I was to create the imp from scratch. I still have to get the imp to work with the Corgi character. Now, if you notice, with Arun, we have a scale of 10, 10, and 10. For the imp, we have a scale of 1, 1, and 1. Doesn't do a whole lot of good. So we're going to change that scale to 10. Start the game again. Look at that. There we got an imp, right? Same size. Okay, now let's move him. Oh, disappeared again. Got real small. Wanted to see. I wonder why that happened. Well, I can give you a hint. What happens is there is another script that was already on the imp script, right? So this imp script, and it took me a while to figure out what was going on. I first dropped in and going, what the heck? Okay, so you go in, you debug, and it comes through a bunch of stuff, and you find out what's going on. What happens is this imp script, while part of the original script to move the character back and forth, decides that they're going to transform the size not just the direction when they swap the sprite. Like, okay, let's do that. So what we've done is we added these three variables, X, Y, and Z, and that will give us, when I click on it the correct way, that will give us the ability to not shrink. What we have is, if you look at the prefab, look at the imp, we've added 10, 10, and 10. So when it changes direction, it's going to stay the same size. All right, say we did that, which we did. So now we're going to start it, and look at that. All of a sudden you got a running imp. Still going to go backwards. We'll talk about that in a second. Still can jump. All right. Still can teleport. Boop, right. Built into the Corgi Engine, you have teleportation. You have spinning doohickeys. You have treadmills. And all the sort of stuff you'd expect in a platformer. Again, this is just the first part. If I were to back up, drop down, oh, I died because I hit the collider between that and that. Oh, look, he hasn't come back yet. So we're going to have to fix another piece of the imp, because if you notice, what we've done is in the level manager, we have taken a rune and we've already made it so that she doesn't shrink. We've also made it that when she dies, she comes back in her active form. Or he. Boom, she died. And boom, back in her active form. Again, just coding how you want to do it. You want to think about how that happens. Let's bring the imp back for a second. If you look at the imp, to me it's a bit repetitive. And I did this yesterday, so I'm like, did it on the fly. I'm like, well, okay, great. What if I go back and I want to change the scale of the imp, say 5, 5, and 5, and then I take the level manager and I put the imp in there instead of a rune, we come up when it starts, and you'll see that, okay, he's size 5, but then when you move, he's size 10. Whenever you move one thing, you got to remember to do the other. It's like, that doesn't help me. So what I want to do is, if you look at the imp, we're going to double click on this imp script, and this is how easy it is to make these changes. It brings up these imp script, right? Imp script 2, let's just do imp script 1. We scroll down here, and we see we have X, Y, and Z. Well, right now, X, Y, and Z are set by what we have there. Well, what if I want X, Y, and Z to be set by that? Right? I don't want to have to redo it every time. Let's do it in one spot. So let's go to here, and we're going to be back in a minute, and we're going to show how to make that change. And we're back. We are going to, like I said, look at how we make a change to that script so that we are using the first spot, or the one spot, the scale, to ensure that, in this case, the imp stays one size. So let's go ahead and click on the prefabs directory, which we're not looking at right now. Go to prefabs, click on that imp. You see there's a 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10. He would work the same. Well, if we went into the script, which we did, I'll bring up the script. We have one way I decided to do this is I wanted to grab the information and keep it. So actually, I tried a couple things, and I don't need this. So let's toast it. Because you try things, if you don't need them, you don't toast them later. So what I did, I created 3 private floats as opposed to the serializable fields, which are public. You heard the dog. So what we do is we come in on start. It grabs the scale, puts them in hold X, Y, and Z. In this point, we don't want the imp to change size anytime. If we wanted to change the size of the imp, we'd put it different than start. Start only runs once. In this case, we want to set the value once and leave it there. And then in the update, it comes in and it puts it back to the hold value for X, Y, and Z. And then if it's going the opposite way, negative X, because it's going the other way, Y, and Z. So if you look at it now, we can go in, you see the 10, 10, and 10. We could make those, make them 1, 1, and 1. Catch up with me. Okay. Now, in the prefab, that's 1, 1, and 1. If we run, and if it was still using those, it would shrink to 1 when you turn left or right. And it didn't. See? There you go. So we don't need those anymore because we no longer need them. I'm going to get rid of them. So if I flip back to the script, which again is Unity C#, if it was Unreal, it would be C++. It could also be JavaScript in Unity, but I prefer C#. What I'm going to do is get rid of these 3 fields in the editor so it's not confusing. So then you save. Once you save, you flip back to the editor. It does a little bit of gyration. It thinks about it. And then if you notice, those 3 disappear, just so we're thinking, and there we go. Right? So we no longer have those values. It's only going to use the scale of 10, 10, and 10. Actually, I prefer 6, 6, and 6. And that's how you change this particular character to integrate into Unity with running back and forth. Okay, that was what we wanted to look at. We want to continue now to go a little further. Now we talked about colliders an episode or so ago. Specifically, I was looking at 3D colliders. 2D colliders work the same way. If you notice, the prefab has what's called the box collider 2D. So on this character, you'll notice that there's a square box around it if we put it in the scene. So let's do it this way. Let's go to scene. We'll take this character. We're going to bring him back down here. We'll take the character, throw this character in. Let's put it here. Doesn't matter where we put it. Notice it's collision box, right? So anytime anything with another collision box hits it, something can happen if you want it to. Now, if you look at the saw's got a circular collision, right? So it completely surrounds it. If any of that circle intersects with this square around the imp, you will see, or you'll get notified there's a collision, right? It's a collider. Those two have collided. It'll tell you where it happened. It'll tell you when it happened, whether it's a trigger or not. You can do all sorts of stuff. It just tells you a bit of information so you can know when they go together and when they don't. Now, what that leads us to, and we'll delete this guy because we don't need him here, is, well, how does he stay up on the different levels? How does he know what's a level and what's not? Well, specifically, he doesn't know, but we know. There is a tool called the tile palette in Unity. What you can do is you can arrange, come on, all right, you can arrange different things. You have platforms. You have touch on death. You have death touch. So what we have here, and as I shut that off so my daughter doesn't drive away with my car, we can then have this palette. We can put things on here. Now, I created a different palette. Retro palette, if you notice, is somewhat here. We can click on platform here, and you can put platforms of particular blocks. In this case, let's say ice. We can put ice right here. Right? Now, that really is a platform, right? So he could stand on that if you want him or her to. But if you put it on ice and then you put it there, it has a different set of properties, right? Because if you go down here and you click on the hierarchy of items and you go to the grid, you'll see platforms, right? All the platform items are highlighted. A platform is something you can stand on, or you could come from the bottom and stop, right? So in the case of this particular platform, you can stand on top of it. You can't jump up through it. You can't jump past it. You have to come from the side or from the top. If you click on what's called one-way platforms, you can stand on them, but you can also jump up from the bottom, right? So you can pass it, and it looks like you're jumping past it. You also have bi-directional ladders. You have treadmills. This is different behaviors based on where you put them on this tile grid. So this tile map allows us to make maps pretty quickly, pretty efficiently. Now, you can change the size of the grid, right? This particular grid is, I think, 1 by 1. let's see, yeah, this particular grid is 1 by 1. Now what I want to do though is this is great, you know, I love this. And it fits the character, so I may stay with the size, I may make it larger. What I want to do is take it and make it different than it is, but definitely bigger. To me, this level isn't large enough. This level is good, it's a good level, but it's really, really short. It's a demo level, it's not a, you know, a real game level. So what I want to show you is what I've done by taking this level manager. You can see where the size is set in the level manager. In the level manager, you have level bounds, right? You're going to give it the extent, you're going to give it size. You can make it one way, not one way, all depending how you want to do it in this Corgi engine. I would like to make the level, let's see, I want to make the center, let's see, instead of 41, let's make this 100. All right, okay. Now, we're going to make this extent 100. Okay, so the center is at 100. Let's put the center back to minus 41, where it was. Okay, so that means our level now is larger. What you can do is then you can take the said level manager, or level start, excuse me. He's not part of the grid, so you change it from looking at the grid to look at the normal items. And you can then drag that start way over here. Now what that means though is when we do that, we have to put more platforms, more places for the person to be on, or the imp, or whatever we're going to do. So that's part of the next project, is to do that. Well, not next project, but next part of this next couple weeks, I'm going to be putting some more levels in this. I want to make it larger, taller. I want to have it more of an action feel. So there's going to be more monsters. There's going to be more bad guys, whatever. There's more up and down, more things to break through. One of the things you have here is that with platformers, you can break through items. Right now, I also haven't shown you the enemies and all sort of stuff, so we'll look at that at another time. But right now, if you notice, if we were to start this level, first of all, the camera's in the wrong spot. So we're going to figure that out later. But we're not going to start it because it dropped without a platform. But we did have to move the level start. We would also have to move the level end here, but you have a whole bunch of level here. Now remember, you can make it taller, you can make it smaller, you can shorter, whatever you want to do. It's all upon you. And this is the engine. It allows, the Corgi engine allows you to do that quickly and efficiently, so you can focus on the game you want to make, not the nitty-gritty of how a platform works. But if you want to change how it works, you can do that. You do have the ability to change the Corgi engine pieces that you want to change if you need to and if you want to. Currently, I don't see a need to. But I wanted to also show you that we have not only the ability to modify the level, and we're going to add some more grids. So if I wanted to take this grid with this tile palette, I want a little bit different of a tile palette. So what I've done is I've made another one that is here, sort of for the scientific lab look. Let me show you that for a second. I did this. It's how it originally came out for the game, for the challenge. And I'm going to grab what I've done is I put all the background stuff into one piece. So I can click on the background and boom. Right? All of a sudden, well, I have to make the level bigger for it. If you notice, all the platforms are really behind images. So we use the sorting layer so that it can jump on, or the creature can jump on things in the layer. Let's move this. Let me show you what I'm talking about. We'll take the level start. We'll bring it back over here, over to where it belongs. All right, and we're going to start it, and you'll see that the creature, or the imp, is in front of the stuff. Can still run, can still jump, but notice he fell in that one. He jumps up here. Now, if you notice, he's standing on nothing, or he was standing about right here. So if we were going to take a prefab and throw it up there, pretend he was standing there, but since he's an object, he disappeared. If we take the level background, in this case the lab, and make it disappear, you see the platform, right? You see what it looks like. I just chose that orange crate just so I knew those were platforms. I left these ones here because it doesn't matter. They're behind the image of the lab background. Now, but you notice this one is still here, right? So here's a collision. It could cause death if you would hit it. And it's a damage on touch script, which means when they collide, it checks that script and says, am I going to hurt you? How much damage? Is there a knockback force? All that damage taken, knockback, Corgi Engine, it's phenomenal. Again, I'm not going to change that portion of it the way for this game. I may change a few things about speed, but not much. Anyways, the point is, if you were to look at lab background and turn it back on, you'll see that that's still there, right? Now, the reason is, if you look at the lab background and you look at one of the items inside of it, pick a panel, right? This panel is on the between layer and -1. If you look at this guy, let's see if I can get him. Okay, if you look at him, his layer is default and 0. Now, what we have up here are layers, and then you have sorting layers. So if you're on between, you're not on the same layer as default, right? You're behind it. So default is in front of between. So that's why you can see that particular death grid, because it's in front of the lab background. If you look on these coins, same thing, right? If you look on the coin, it is in the foreground, which means it's going to go behind it, but he's going to collect it, so it's not going to matter. Now these grids, right, this particular treadmill, it's on default, so it's in front of the between layer, and that's how we can change the background, right? Now what I wanted to do is I want to make this layer a little bit into a different area. So I was starting to play around with a different look, and I'll show you that sometime in the future. But again, we're going to change some things, move forward with this. I want to make sure I work a little diligently on this one. So while the challenge has been completed, we'd like to, within, I don't know, 3 months maybe, publish this first level. We'll find out, see how quickly we can come with that. But again, this level, we expect this game to have maybe 20 levels. So if I can get this level of 19 levels completed, that's when we'll push it out. Probably to Windows, and then Steam and things like that. But that's a different story. When we get there, we have to do things like a controller. There's another asset that I use that Digital Piper purchased called Rewired that allows the controller to be chosen by the user. You can, pick whether you want to use keyboard or mouse, and rearrange your buttons. That's all pre-purchased. That's all in an asset that I don't need to change. It's already written. Looks pretty decent, so I'm not going to mess with it. Looks good. So we're going to add this to this one so that you can change your controllers. Again, it's a way of taking something, and instead of having to create all of it yourself, you can buy an asset from a very good, asset developer, work with it, integrate it, and then you have your game. All right, so we've looked at what? We've looked at the Corgi engine. We've looked at how it works with Unity. We've looked at the player, how to do an enemy AI if we need to. We did a script change. We've looked at colliders, the level manager, modify the level size, right? Tile maps. Like I said over here, we were going to go in and we are going to add some of these blocks so we're not missing any. So if we click on that, and then we were to click on brush, there you go, right? We have a quick way of doing that. Whoops, made a little mistake there. So we can erase those. Now those are all ice, right? So they're going to slide across there. So let's get rid of this guy. Where is he? There he is. Boom, get rid of him. If we start it, he'll start over here, and that's where the camera is. But notice we can go backwards, but there's a wall there. Right? So, well, that's not going to help us because it's a wall. Right? Because if you notice on the grid, we have walls. So what we can do is click on there, which is, I think I'm going to set as a platform. And if I go to platform and go erase, we're going to erase those. Remember, those are platforms. You can't go through those any way you want to go. There's no way to go through them. That's why he was being stopped. If we were to start now, he can now go back. But notice he's not as quick. He sort of slides, right? Because that's ice, right? Because even though it looks like it's not ice, you have to be careful when you choose which ones you want. So let's go back to ice. And we'll pick one. We'll pick ice. And then we will erase that. We'll simply go like, whoops, it's not erasing that because we're on a draw. So let's erase those, just like Paint Shop. And those are gone. What I want to do then is we can take a platform. We can decide to use a different palette, right? What if we want it to look different? We have different palettes. We have a military pack. I experimented with this one. The HQ pack, right? A little bit different. We have the brick pack. Now this one is the one I'm thinking about. What we can do is take this and we're going to do this. We're going to put on the platform. We're going to put on paintbrush and click it in. Now the problem is with this particular image, look at the size of it. The image is bigger than the pack, than the grid. So it doesn't really work as a grid, right? If we're going to use that grid that size. So again, that's why I sort of hid stuff. If we get rid of those and we come back here and we were to change the palette, change the palette to layer 2, and then make sure it's platform. We draw it all, come on. Draw it all the way across. Dun, dun, dun. Let's go up. Okay, now what we can do, just like the lab background, we can decide we want to do it different. Now let's make sure these are all grids. So let's click here. Those are platforms. So those are at a particular sorting layer. We want to take an image. All right, let's go. I want to enter something else. So let's do this. What did I do? See, there's one I added too, but let's grab a different image. Let's grab a game object. Let's create an image. And then we'll pick the image. So when you click on that, you see this big list of all the images, or in this case, sprites you have. And you want to pick one that fits, right? So let's pick one. Let's pick this one for now. And if we're going to go, this image is up here. If we were to take this image and we were to put it there. All right, okay, get that right. We're going to Control D. All right, place that right. Hopefully, Control D. Bring it over just a little bit. We're going to Control D and bring it down. All right, now let's ensure these are sitting at the right layer. Let's make sure they're lined up there. All right, so these images are on the UI layer. We don't want them on the UI layer. We want to have them a different place, so when you start, you can run on top of them. But let's take this and show you real quick. If we go to real close, you'll see the level start. We can move it over so we're not running all the way. If we were to start this, the images aren't there, right? Because they aren't yet in a position where they can be seen by the camera, right? The UI layer is not where you need to put these. And that's a different thing, right? Because you can have different layers for different items. Now, what we want to do, let's put this layer on background. Let's see what happens. Take these images. All right, we'll start it again. Still not there, right? Now, here's what we can do. We can then take an example of what we had. Let's take the lab background. Click on it. Panel 1, right? That's what's called a sprite renderer. That's different than an actual sprite. So what you can do, see again, is you go in, you can take it. We're going to delete them. We're going to, instead of doing this, we're going to get rid of this. Let's take this, remove component. We're going to add a component. We're going to say sprite renderer. Whoops. And then, boom, there it is. Let's change the sprite to the one we wanted. And now notice it's a little bit different. All right, so you got a problem here. Notice the size of it is different than the size. If you notice it's a 100 by 100. Well, what if we don't want it 100 by 100? What if we want it 50 by 50? Right? Notice that box is a different size. But you notice you have to be able to line that up then. So just to give an example of one way of doing it would be to put this here and then to make that 25 by 25, close, 20 by 20. That's closer. Let's try 15 by 15. That's a little small. Let's try 18 by 18. All right, almost perfect. So we're going to put that there. We're going to duplicate it. Control D. Line those up. All right, now what you can do then is select all four of them. Control D, and you've got all those. And again, well, there's a different top and everything. So this is by no means a complete, picture of how to do it. But let's just start it, and you'll see that it's going to look like the imp dropped on rocks, right? So you can cover that whole thing with rocks. You could get a bit tedious that way. You can make them larger, they can smaller. You can do the lab background like we did, right? So this is going to be completely different when it comes out. But we've been, again, goofing around with it. And that's the part about Corgi and Unity is you get in, you do some stuff, you save it, and you move on. Now, what I'm going to do is, since we made a bunch of changes, I'm going to save this scene as, and we're going to save it toward the top, so we're not running for it anymore. We're going to call it Human After All, and then we're going to call it Chapter 1 for now. All right. So that's all you need to do. We've got in this case, a 2D platformer that we've looked at all the pieces, or some of the pieces. There's a lot more to look at. We've looked at the art. We've looked at the players. A large portion of looking at how Corgi integrates with this one. In the future, I will do another video on how Unreal works with things as well. But currently, I'm focusing on Unity. I think there's reasons I did that, the maturity, but Unreal is got a lot of stuff going for it too. So I'm working with that one as well. But we'll see what comes up next. Again, this was Stormzlord. Thank you for joining me at my Tech Corner. You can catch me at twitter.com at Stormzlord. You can catch me at Stormzlord at digitalpiperstudios.com. Check out all our podcasts at Dungeon Crawler Network. And join us in-game in ESO, the Hands of Fate Guild. Join us in-games at Ashes of Creation Apocalypse, Hands of Fate Guild as well. Dungeon Crawler Network. Any other place you can find us as well. All right. Have a good one.